Another day, another scandal for football. This time, Mark Overmars quits, resigns, leaves his post to Ajax very recently after signing a new deal over inappropriate text messages being sent to female colleagues. He has apologized. He has said that this has caused him embarrassment and he had no other opportunity, no other option but to leave. But it is yet again another scandal. Another piece of poor behavior from, in this case, a legendary figure of the European game, a high-profile individual at Ajax, a man that many Premier League clubs wanted to help come into their club, their system, to help try and improve things. It's another smudge, another smear next to football, which in recent weeks and months has continued to go through pain, but not unfair pain. Pain because of its own behaviors. Pain because of its own processes. For years, this misogynistic, Neanderthalic behavior from football players has been supported by football. Whether it be fans brushing it under the carpets, the clubs protecting it, media outlets being paid off, people not being listened to, have enabled this type of behavior to go on and to continue. More and more of it is now being exposed, as we know, with a number of cases coming to light in just recent weeks. Former Chelsea and West Ham manager Avram Grant, has been exposing himself to women whilst they were sleeping. He has stripped his clothes off in front of an Israeli model and has pestered others for sexual intercourse, claims a TV documentary in Israel. This is Avram Grant, very well known across the spectrum in football in the UK. This has been very much been brushed under the carpet here. Of course, the Mason Greenwood has been dominating, and rightfully so, along with Benjamin Mendy. But it's another case of exceedingly bad behavior from a senior figure and someone that's, as I say, very recognizable within the game of football. The most embarrassing part about that story when you read it is he's come out and apologized, and it's the same sort of PR-based nonsense of, well, I didn't really mean to cause offense. I didn't really mean to hurt anybody. I didn't really mean to upset anybody with my actions. It's absolutely scandalous. It's absolutely scandalous. There are inappropriate jokes. There are slips of the tongue. There's even making a pass at a woman or a man at work and being told, I'm really sorry, like I'm not interested. That is one thing. But when you read and look at these types of situations of exposing a penis over a sleeping woman's head, stripping naked in front of models, and pestering others for sex, that's not a joke. That isn't something you can just say, sorry if I caused offense for. When you look at Mark Overmars' situation, it's numerous people. If you did it, I can understand if you work in an office, 100 people, there may be, from a man's perspective in Overmars' situation, a lady or two over the course of time that you take a fancy to. But how many has he been texting? How many has he been pestering? How many has he been going after? This is a problem. This isn't something, by the way, in my opinion, he's developed in the last 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. You may find this has been something going on since his playing days. And why has this been unable to flourish? Because this is the culture of football internally. Clubs do everything they can to protect their players and their assets. We understand why, but does that make it right? No. Fans also play a big part in this. Our lack of ability to self-police is abhorrent, and I included have been responsible in that. We spoke on the Straight Facts podcast just the other day about the amount of things our players have done. Some of them just immoral, some of them illegal, that over the course of the past 30 years, I've seen us all turn blind eyes to. Players that have gone to prison, players that drink drive, players that cheat, both on and off the pitch. These things have, of course, led up to serious crimes that we've seen come to light in recent days. But there still seems to be this necessity and this want to go out of our way to try and protect these people. And these stories, it takes 5 minutes of research on social media to see. These stories are everywhere right now. These are current. These are up to date, with a former football star charged with sexual assault of a woman in her 20s in Derry. Of course, you've had recently the case with ex-City and Bayern Munich centre-back Boateng, who's found guilty of assaulting his ex-girlfriend. The Benjamin Mendy case just goes on and gets worse and worse as things continue. And the reason why I find this so shocking is there aren't very many footballers. In the grand scheme of things, there's not very many of them compared to the general populace. And the amount of these cases that are coming up and coming to light is absolutely staggering. Now, I called for this last week and I stand by it again. Football needs an independent thematic review of its processes, of its complaint handling. Where do these grievances go? Are people sitting there in silence? Are things being brushed under the carpet? Because if Lady A goes to her employer or goes to the football club of a player and it's brushed under the carpet, payoffs are being made, what message is this sending to these men from a young age? And if they're allowed to get away with it at 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, this will progress into their adulthood, especially if they're in the same sphere of football. Now, the number of domestic abuse cases, sexual assaults towards women is disgraceful. Over the course of lockdown, we have seen this rise, and more needs to be done. Football is something we all love. Football is something we all consume on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, year in, year out. It's our escapism from life. The problem is when what you escape into is full of scandal, is full of problems, is full of something you wouldn't want to put your children into, you wouldn't want to put your daughter into, you wouldn't be comfortable with your girlfriend or your mother or your wife working in an environment like that. Hell, I wouldn't be comfortable right now with my son working in an environment like that. You don't want him around people that are doing this. How deep does this go? And this comes just 24 hours after Man United players and members of the squad being furious over the ostracizing of Mason Greenwood. This story is trying to be brushed under the carpet. Certain media outlets are not talking about it, which I find very, very strange. Ralf Rangnick, according to a number of reports, is now facing growing dressing room unrest, with players said to be fuming over the club were right to freeze out Mason Greenwood after his arrest. You actually have players sitting there and thinking that he should be publicly supported at this moment in time, that the club should stand by him irrespective of what he may or may not have done. Man United in this instance, we don't know what happened prior. We have to wait for that's why the thematic review is needed. The deep dive into everything going on at these football clubs. But Man United were right, absolutely right to suspend him. Now they can suspend him to up to 14 days. After 14 days, there needs to be a agreement between the player and Manchester United as to whether he remains suspended or not. Mason Greenwood can refuse this and come back to training as of Monday week. This time next week, he can come back to training, according to a report I read in The Athletic by a sports journalist. Man United then have a couple of options, one of them to be to completely cancel his contract. That may not necessarily work because if that happens, Mason Greenwood would appeal. As soon as he appeals, he's reinstated and therefore can come back to training. Manchester United have to do everything in their power to ensure that this case is taken seriously. For any single player to not understand this just tells me of the deep-rooted problem. The innocent until proven guilty argument, for me, goes out the window here. That's about allowing somebody to have a fair trial. That's about allowing somebody to have all elements of the law, not so much on their side, but given to them so they can present their case clearly, ethically, and fairly. It doesn't mean an employer needs to keep you in the public eye throughout the course of that time. They are two very, very different things, exceedingly different things. And I don't even think Mason being around is good for him, irrespective of whether people think he is guilty or innocent. We all know my stance on that. I think he is as guilty as sin. And I stand by what I've said for weeks. I need to see the evidence that he's innocent before I change my mind, because the evidence that he is guilty, for me, is very, very damning indeed. But with cases against Avram Grant coming out, former West Ham and Chelsea manager. You now have the situation with Mark Overmars, of course, a Premier League and Arsenal legend, one of the most sought after directors of football across Europe. The brilliance that he has done at Ajax, his career is now probably rightfully over for what he has been doing. This is beyond cheat. He has been caught cheating on his wife. He has been sexually harassing female staff with his employers. No club should be taking this man on. And if they do, it's a huge indicator of where the problems lie in this game. That as long as you are doing a good job, football will employ you. As long as you can score goals, as long as you can sign us the right players, as long as you can keep the profit margins good, you have a job. You have a position. Clubs need to take more action. Football needs to stand up and do more. It absolutely does, because this is an absolute disgrace. And it will just be brushed under the carpet when games go on and when teams start playing again and there's things to celebrate. And we all want the escapism, the ecstasy, the excitement, the brilliance that football brings to us. But surely we want it to be as clean as possible. There are always going to be mistakes. There are always going to be bad apples. There are always going to be deviants. There's always going to be people that create problems. You're never going to get rid of that. No one's expecting it to be the cleanest of the cleanest of the cleanest environment ever, where every single person is holier than thou. But it's about the process, and it's about the empowerment of these behaviors that needs to be addressed. I want your thoughts. I want your feelings. Make sure you're smashing the like button. Leave your comments below. Overmars done out here, and rightfully so. Take care. Goodbye. God bless.